This is Ishan Avastin, and he studies so badly that he got into the 3rd grade for the 2nd time, but not because he climbs trees all day and fooling around. The boy doesn't even have friends. Ishan and his parents have yet to find out why all these troubles are happening to him, and in the most unexpected circumstances. This is what an ordinary Ishan school day looks like. He listens to the results of the tests and finds out that he received the worst grades from the whole class. All the teachers and educators yell at him, and peers bypass him because Ishan behaves strangely. Despite all this, Ishan remains a cheerful child who laughs at the sight of yard dogs and plays with them for a long time in the yard, though completely forgetting that school tests cannot be used as a toy. In general, he constantly forgets everything: wash his hands before eating, turn off the tap, give his parents the work to sign. But the boy's brother, Johan, is the complete opposite. He is the best in all subjects, the pride of parents. One would think that he dislikes Ishan, but it's not like that at all. The brother seems to be the only one who does not swear at the boy. One day, completely forgetting about the lessons, Ishan runs outside to the barking of yard dogs. While he is messing with them, the neighborhood boys play a ball that falls near Ishan, and his peers ask him to throw the ball back, but Ishan misses. This is incredibly angry with the leader of the company, and he orders the boy to immediately bring the ball to the playground. Ishan does not know how to react to such aggression and simply remains silent, which angers the bully even more. A fight ensues between them, from which Ishan barely extricates himself. He returns home all in tears, bruises and beatings, but with a kite, which he accidentally caught. But problems are waiting for him even before he crosses the threshold of the apartment. Even from the corridor, he hears a neighbor complaining to his mom that he broke all her flowers. It turns out that this neighbor is the mother of the bully who bullied Ishan. The kid brazenly lies in front of his parents that Ishan beat him up. Then a fight almost breaks out between them again, and the parents of an adult boy leave the Avast family home, out of harm's way. The father gives his son a beating. He says that everyone complains about Ishan every day, and promises his son that he will send him to a boarding school if he does not improve. Ishan's mother, on the contrary, feels sorry for her son. She washes his wounds and calms him down. The next morning, Ishan's father leaves on a business trip for a few days. The boy's mother manages to set the table twice, send her husband to work, and her older brother to school, and only then remembers about the younger one, who meanwhile sleeps sweetly in his bed. To get a child to school, mom has to constantly distract him from fantasy and pampering, and so every day. At school, Ishan is waiting for the next difficulties. While everyone is listening to the teacher, the boy looks out the window and thinks about something of his own. And when the teacher calls him and asks him to read the sentence, he can't cope. Ishan declares that the letters in the textbook dance in front of him, and he is ridiculed. The teacher simply does not believe him and shouts, but Ishan has his own unusual answer to such behavior. Ishan is kicked out of class, and at the next lesson he realizes that he did not do his math homework and did not sign the parents' tests. Then the boy, out of desperation, does not find anything better than to escape to the city. There he watches street vendors, painters, builders, and ordinary pedestrians, enjoying solitude and tranquility. At home, Ishan draws all his free time, and when the time comes to check homework, he only listens to his mother's lectures. She does not understand how he could have misspelled all the words in the notebook and is sure that her son will stay for the 2nd year again. In the middle of the night, Ishan will see his brother and tells him that he ran away from school during the day. The elder is in shock. He begins to wail that it is very dangerous to walk alone, because he can be hit by a car or someone can kidnap him. But something has been done, and now Ishan has a request to his brother. He asks me to write him an explanation for the fact that he skipped class. Johan initially refuses, but still cannot refuse his brother. He writes an explanatory note in such a neat handwriting that at school, Ishan's teacher does not even notice the deception. Next, she gives the whole class math tests that will affect the result of the entire semester. But instead of poring over examples like all the other guys, Ishan imagines some kind of space adventures in his head and solves just one problem, and that's wrong. Soon Ishan's dad returns from a business trip. The son can't get enough of his father's arrival, but his fun doesn't last long. Suddenly Mr. Avastin finds something interesting on the floor. Having deceived him, he hides in the open. Under the onslaught of his father's screams, Ishan lays out the whole truth about how he walked around the city alone instead of sitting in class. But this is not all the bad news that upset parents have to learn. A couple of days later they find themselves at the principal's where Ishan's teachers talk about his terrible grades. It turns out that he has not made any progress since last year and is still making the same mistakes. In addition, parents will find out that Ishan did not bring them control papers for signature. The director takes the floor. She hints that if this continues, they do not intend to leave the boy at school. It is better to send him to a specialized institution. The father does not even want to hear about sending Ishan to an institution for children with special needs, so the same evening he calls his friend and arranges to transfer his son to a boarding school for boys. His wife tries to dissuade him, because his son has never been away from his family, and sending him to another school in the middle of the school year is a huge stress, but his father stands his ground. He is not convinced even by the unrestrained tears of his younger son. In the coming weeks, Ishan suffers from nightmares and constantly persuades his mother so that his parents do not send him to boarding school. It seems that she is about to take pity on her son, but he gets into trouble again, throws a firecracker at a neighbor's bully. A little time passes and he finally finds himself in a huge academic building, where students are required to be strict, obedient, and orderly. Ishan begins a new life in which he is no less lonely than in the old one. The boy is constantly crying and can't understand why his parents abandoned him. Meanwhile, his mother, at home, too, can't find a place for herself. She finds her son's drawings where he draws himself apart from the rest of the family and worries whether they made the right choice. At the boarding school, Ishan gets even more reproaches than at the last school. Now he is being scolded not only for his poor studies, but also for the fact that he does not know how to tie a tie. In the classroom, the boy is put with Rajanam, the best student in the class, and he tries to cheer up Ishan. He tells a new friend that this is not a punishment school for everyone. That's why you can find something good here. But it's difficult to find good when everyone around you is shouting at you, the children are laughing, and the drawing teacher hits the students on the fingers with a ruler for poor results, so Ishan only closes himself in more. When his parents come to visit him for the first time, he runs away to the playground and refuses to talk to them. He is not even happy about the set of watercolor paints that Johan gives him. The boy no longer wants to go to lessons, especially to a drawing class, but it turns out that the former evil teacher was sent to New Zealand and a new teacher replaces him. Rajan happily leads Ishan to classes, not even suspecting what a surprise awaits them ahead. The new teacher is not at all like the others. He shows up to classes with a flute and in a circus performer costume, sings songs with the guys and invites them to draw whatever comes into their heads. But Ishan not only does not look at the fun performance, he also refuses to pick up paints. The next day, the art teacher catches up with Rajan and asks why his desk neighbor is so quiet. The boy explains that Ishan just really wants to go back home, because he is new here. Ram wonders where it is seen that a child is transferred to a new school in the middle of the school year, but Rajan tells him that Ishan simply cannot write and read, so he was essentially kicked out of that school. Ram runs to the staff room to look at Ishan's notebooks and can't believe his eyes. The boy writes the same word in 3 different ways. Later, Ram comes to work at a specialized school, where he works most of the time. There he shares with his colleague that he met a boy similar to himself at a boarding school. With tears in his eyes, Ram says that this boy does not say a word, and his eyes look like he is begging for help. Without thinking twice, Ram decides to go to Ishan's parents to talk about everything with them. There he sees a lot of drawings and wonders who their author is. When Ishan's mother says that this is her youngest son, Ram cannot believe his ears, because the boy did not draw any dashes in his lessons. Ram asks Ishan's parents why they sent him so far away. The father begins to lament that they had no other choice. The son is naughty and lazy, and otherwise he would not have finished the 3rd grade again. But Ram does not agree with this. He believes that all these problems are symptoms, not the cause. The teacher explains that there is a pattern in the mistakes the boy makes. He just confuses similar letters. He has dyslexia. But Ishan's father is not convinced by this answer. He is still sure that these are just excuses. Ram then asks Mr. Obastin to read the description of the box in Chinese, and when he says he can't, scolds him. Ram says that it is precisely because of dyslexia that it is difficult for Ishan not only to read and write, but also to perform small household chores, for example, tie a tie or sneakers. It's hard to even imagine how he feels, especially considering that no one supports the boy. Perhaps that's why he stopped drawing, Ram says. But Ishan's father doesn't care much about drawing. He wants his son to be successful and normal. He has nothing to answer Ram's words that all children are different, and Ishan has a special gift. The next day, Ram brings to class a book with drawings that Ishan made and secretly shows it to the boy, and then begins classes with an unusual story about a child who could not read and write. But despite the fact that everyone around him mocked him, he grew up and became great. Who are we talking about?
Albert Einstein.
Ram begins to tell children a lot of stories about famous people who were not friends with letters in childhood: Leonardo da Vinci, Walt Disney, and Pablo Picasso. The teacher says that with these stories he wanted to show the children that some people look at the world completely differently and there is nothing wrong with it. If no one understands you, it does not mean that you are good for nothing. After that, Ram tells the children that they will have a lesson in nature today. But before leaving the classroom, he calls Ishan to him. He admits that he forgot to mention another name among the dyslexics, his own. He had the same problems with reading and writing as a child. His father thought he was a goofball, but he grew up and learned everything. It seems a kind teacher inspires Ishan. At the lesson, Ishan makes a beautiful fruit that floats on a twig and delights all classmates. Ram comes to the director of the boarding school and says that he wanted to discuss Ishan's progress. The principal already thought that the teacher had come to complain like everyone else. It turns out he is already thinking about expelling the boy, but Ram interrupts him. He believes that the child's intelligence is above average. He just has some difficulties with writing. The art teacher offers the director such a plan: take up Ishan and teach him writing, reading, and mathematics several hours a week, and ask the rest of the teachers to interview the boy verbally for the time being. The director doubts the success of this plan, but Ram shows him Ishan's drawings and still convinces him to give the gifted boy a second chance. Ram and Ishan begin individual classes. They learn letters and numbers using paints, sand, and plasticine, and the boy is rapidly beginning to show success. Now he not only reads whole sentences, but also writes fluently and without mistakes. He even manages to change clothes on his own, tie his shoelaces, and comb his hair. A few months later, Ram announces an artist competition at the school, in which everyone can participate. Hundreds of students, teachers, boarding school, and even the drawing teacher of Rama himself come to it. And only Ishan is still not there. The teacher starts to get nervous. Rajan tells him that his friend left school before dawn. At the moment when Ram ceases to hope for the appearance of his beloved disciple, and yet he finally comes to the amphitheater. He pulls away from everyone, takes the paints that his brother gave him, and starts painting what he went to admire before the whole campus woke up. It turns out an amazing picture from which the teacher is literally speechless. NM himself has also been drawing something special all this time. The announcement of the results begins. The director says that Mrs. Ladami, the invited judge of the competition, could not choose between two works until the last. She had to choose between the drawings of the teacher and his student, but after much thought, she still made a decision and gave the victory to Ishan. The hall erupts with ovations. The guys and teachers applaud the young artist, only he hid somewhere in the crowd and is shy of everyone's attention, lowering his eyes. Ishan still pulls himself together and goes on stage, where he receives an award from the hands of teacher Ram, and then hugs his mentor in tears. The semester ends. Everyone goes home. Ishan's parents come to the boarding school and meet with the director, who shows them the new issue of the school yearbook with a picture of their son on the cover and his portrait on the backdrop. Everyone admires Ishan, both students and adults who once considered the boy hopeless. The boy says goodbye to his teacher until the next school year and happily goes home for the holidays. Have you ever had to face difficulties at school? Tell your story in the comments. Who knows? Maybe it will also cheer someone up. Subscribe to our channel if you want to watch even more good and cool stories from the world of cinema.